Hello and welcome to the Genuine Learning Blog. My name is Melissa Galasso, and today we're going to talk about a recently issued report from the FASB. Now, this is not an audit standard or an accounting standard, but it's just an update. So while the FASB has issued their annual report, which we've already talked about, we also get the opportunity to hear a little bit about how the FASB engages with various groups. Obviously, I sit on the Not-for-Profit Advisory Committee for the FASB, and we give updates on what's going on in those areas. But obviously, we also want to talk a little bit about what's going on in terms of the investor side. And so the FASB issues a report typically on an annual basis to provide a little bit of update on what's going on here. So the 2022-2023 report was issued in August of 2023. And again, really just focuses on their commitment to investor engagement, because remember, the primary user of our financial statements, right, are these users, right, these investors. And as a result, they really want to make sure that they're giving the users what they need to make the financial decision, which is the whole reason why we have external financial reporting. And so I think that their whole goal here is really just to showcase the work that they're doing. And so I'm going to show you a little bit around their report here. So again, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so you guys can see it, but this is their report with a little bit of background on what's going on. They talk about how they address some of the big items like cryptocurrency that were at the top of user requests there. And so again, you can kind of see some of the things, income tax disclosures, the income statement expansion, right? All really stemming from the needs of users. And so they give a little bit of background on how they work here. And again, they talk about our newest user to the board. So in this scenario, the board does have terms that end June 30th. And so we have Dr. Joyce Joseph, who has joined the board, and her background is pretty phenomenal. She has a DBA, a master's degree, very, very smart person. So excited to have her here. But her background is very much in the user group. And so they'll do a little bit about that. But this is signed by the chair of the FASB, so Rich Jones, and then Hillary Salo, who is our technical director. So she's responsible for all the things with respect to the technical side and the staffing. And so they go back over the mission statement. They talk a little bit about how they're fulfilling their mission with respect to investors, and then why it's important. But then what I really love about this is, how did they get investor feedback? Because you would think it all came through comment letters, right? No. If we look at it, that's not really how they get a lot of their investor feedback. So in terms of the types of investors, they have buy side, sell side, credit rating agencies. So when we look at the NAC, right, Moody's is on there, lenders. So Andrea Cantor represents Webster Bank, and then other as they go through it. And so they talk a little bit about how they're getting these user input and interpretations here. But this is probably my favorite picture from the investor outreach report, because only 5% of the feedback that they get comes from comment letters. They really do a great job of going out there and getting 66% from outreach, from calling and asking and getting feedback. They're not getting it voluntarily. They're going out and getting it from the user group. And then 29%, which we're going to see, is really represented by their advisory groups, whether that is the investor advisory group, which is sole purpose is around making sure investors are getting what they need, but also ensuring that investors serve on other committees like the NAC has investors represented. And so again, as we go through this, what are some of the things that they consider in terms of their outreach, and why are they going through this? And then again, this is two of the members of the FASB board who are users. So Fred Cannon, he has still a couple of years left on his term, and his background, he asks all the user questions, especially even on our NAC meetings. Always fun to hear the questions that he raises. I'm excited to hear a little bit more. Obviously, she's relatively new, so we don't have as much feedback yet, but her background is just phenomenal. So she spent 2 decades leading research and analysis on current and emerging financial accounting and reporting matters for S&P Global before founding her own capital advisory, accounting advisory and research LLC. So she sounds pretty amazing. Again, as I mentioned, she's got a doctorate, she's got an MBA, and she obviously has a bachelor's degree. So very well educated, very interesting background. I'm really excited to see. And her joining the board is kind of an interesting one, because now it is a female majority board. There are 4 women and 3 men on the board. So a lot of diversity added with the joining of Dr. Joseph. However, there are also staff members. These are people who come from an investor background who now work for the FASB as staff in order to make sure that they also are getting the views represented at the staff level. And then, as I mentioned, they have an investor advisory committee, which is the only committee that is only one type of participant. And so it made entirely up of entirely investors and dedicated solely to investors. And that's a rarity. Usually they try to get practitioners and preparers and users. This one is just for that user group. And so again, they give a little bit of feedback about some of the new members and some of the members who are continuing forward. And if you're interested, you can see some of what they worked on in their recent meetings. But what I thought was super interesting is, hey, even if you go to like the NEC, as you can see here, quite a few people who get determined to be user feedback here. The FASAC, EITF, PCC, SBAC, all have investor feedback coming in. So not only from the preparers and the practitioners, but always including those user groups. And so again, they just talk a little bit about how they plan to work into the future. So if you have an interest in this area, I do recommend that you take a closer read than what we just covered, but I just thought you would be interested in what the FASB is working on here. All right, so I want to thank you guys for joining. I know there's lots going on right now, and this is a really cool way of just seeing how the FASB gets the feedback. Because a lot of times people say, why did FASB work on this? And we'll talk about the users. And so you get to see who these users are and how they're getting the feedback so that we know why the standards are happening. So I want to thank you guys so much for joining me, and I hope to see you on a future blog. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.